Welcome back to Structures Unchained. This week, we dive into a New York City Megaplan. A $1.9 billion tunneling contract has been signed for a subway extension that still won't open until September 2032. The 14-mile line, designed to connect Brooklyn to Queens without touching Manhattan, Penn Station, is being rebuilt, while it keeps moving the busiest rail flows in the country. A 2.4-mile flood barrier is being buried inside a park rebuild along the East River. And in Queens, 2,500 affordable homes are rising next to a 25,000-seat stadium, aiming for 2027. The city's big bet isn't a new skyline. It's a quieter kind of upgrade, and it starts with the project New York has been promising for generations. If you want to understand why this matters, start with a simple truth. One line shouldn't have to carry an entire side of Manhattan. The Lexington Avenue line has been that pressure valve for decades. When it's crowded, the east side feels smaller. When it's delayed, the city feels brittle. The obvious fix was more service, but you can't schedule your way out of geometry forever. Phase 2 of the 2nd Avenue subway changes the geometry. It pushes the line from 96th Street to 125th Street, with 3 new stations at 106th, 116th, and 125th, plus the kind of connection that rewires habits. Here's the part that makes it real in 2026. Utility relocations are underway, and the major tunneling contract, $1.972 billion, has already been awarded as part of a total project budget framed around $6.99 billion. But here's the catch. On projects like this, the public thinks the work starts when a tunnel boring machine spins up. In reality, the city starts moving long before that, relocating utilities, staging shafts, setting up work zones, and doing the unglamorous prep that decides whether the schedule holds or slides. The next big moment is 2027, when tunnel boring is slated to begin, and the date everyone will repeat is September 2032, the current target for revenue service. That's a long runway. So why does it still feel urgent? Because the benefit isn't just a faster trip, it's a second route that makes the whole east side less fragile. You don't just serve East Harlem, you relieve the chain reaction that happens when one overworked corridor has a bad day. If you've ever squeezed onto a Lexington train and thought, this can't be normal, this is the city admitting it isn't. Now zoom out. A north-south extension is huge, but New York has another everyday tax baked into the map. If you live in Brooklyn and work in Queens, the system often forces you to route through Manhattan like it's the only switchboard. That's why the next project is so disruptive, because it rewrites the shape of a normal commute. 14 miles doesn't sound dramatic in New York until you realize what those miles do. The Interborough Express is designed to connect Brooklyn to Queens directly, Bay Ridge to Jackson Heights, using an existing rail right-of-way, 19 stations, connections to up to 17 subway lines, plus links to the LIRR, and an end-to-end ride time expected to land around 40 minutes. This is the kind of project that doesn't need a skyline to feel massive. It changes the map in your head. Because right now, cross-borough travel can feel like you're doing it wrong, even when you're doing it exactly the way the system forces you to. Transfer, backtrack, transfer again. It's not just slower, it's tiring. The obvious fix was more buses. New York tried that, but buses still fight the same signals, the same curb conflicts, and the same congestion. So IBX takes a different approach. Give the outer boroughs their own rapid transit spine. By 2026, the project has moved into active development with a focus on light rail design, backed by major funding in the 2025 to 2029 capital plan. The headline estimate sits around $5.5 billion, but the real payoff is time. People saving 30 minutes per trip without going anywhere near Midtown. Here's the make or break detail. IBX doesn't win on tracks, it wins on transfers. If those stations feel like clean handoffs, short walks, obvious wayfinding, reliable headways, people will adopt it fast. If transfers are clumsy, the line becomes something everyone knows about, but fewer people build habits around. This is the project that lets Brooklyn and Queens act like neighbors instead of distant boroughs. Now, you've got one line pushing into Harlem, another line stitching two boroughs together, and New York still has a single node that can embarrass the entire region in one bad hour. Penn Station. Penn Station is one of those places where the city's reputation gets tested in 5 minutes. It's not just crowded, it's confusing. It's a maze built around compromises, tight circulation, awkward entrances, bottlenecks that turn a normal day into a slow shuffle, and the feeling that the most important station in the country should not look and behave like this. The obvious fix would be to build a brand new station somewhere else. But you can't just relocate the center of gravity of the Northeast Corridor, and you can't shut Penn down to rebuild it. Only option is the hard one: transform it while it stays alive. As of this window, the process is moving through developer selection and design staging, with a commitment to begin construction by the end of 2027, and the rebuild aimed at early 2030s completion. This is where New York gets judged, not on renderings, on whether the station becomes legible, whether circulation improves, whether accessibility upgrades feel real, whether the passenger experience stops punishing you for simply trying to get to a platform. The win condition is simple. Penn becomes a place where movement feels intuitive, not improvisational. Nobody talks about Penn Station on their best day. They talk about it when it ruins one. And that's the pivot of the whole era. Because some mega projects are about moving faster. Others are about not losing the city at all. After Sandy, Lower Manhattan's question isn't, can you get across town? It's, can you stay here? East Side Coastal Resiliency, a flood barrier hidden in plain sight. This is one of the biggest infrastructure builds in Manhattan, and most people will experience it as a park. East Side Coastal Resiliency is a 2.4-mile flood protection system along the East River, blending raised landscapes, flood walls, berms, gates, and rebuilt access points. It's designed to protect low-lying neighborhoods that don't get a second chance when the water rises. The obvious solution would have been a visible wall, but walls turn waterfronts into barriers, so the defense gets hidden inside a rebuilt public realm. Sections of East River Park are being raised on the order of 8 to 10 feet in places, so the protection line is real, and the timeline matters. Earlier projections talked about end 2026, but conditions underground changed the calendar, and the project has been tracking toward late 2027 completion for major sections. That sounds like a delay story, but the more interesting story is the strategy. Deliver functional protection earlier than full completion, because storms don't wait for ribbon cuttings. The goal is that the next surge becomes a scary headline, not a personal disaster. Now, after transit and resilience, New York's last test is the one that never goes away: housing. Not in abstract units, in doors that actually open. And one of the biggest proof projects is happening on land that used to feel like the city forgot it existed. Willets Point has been a symbol of stuckness for decades. Industrial lots, messy access, stalled plans, prime geography that never became a real neighborhood. Now it's being rebuilt into a new district, anchored by one of the biggest affordable housing moves the city has attempted in years. The plan is 2,500 units of 100% affordable housing delivered in phases, alongside new infrastructure, a school, retail, community space, and a sports anchor, a 25,000-seat NYCFC stadium. Phase 1 is near-term reality. The first 880 units are tracking for an April 2026 opening window. That's families moving in, routines forming, and a new daily footprint appearing where asphalt used to dominate. Then comes the stadium, targeted for 2027. And while the stadium gets headlines, the deeper win is land repair, streets that behave like streets, utilities that can support growth, and a district that works on a Tuesday morning, not just on game day. Because regeneration projects fail in a specific way. They build something impressive, but they don't build something usable. They create a destination instead of a neighborhood. Willets Point succeeds if it feels like a complete piece of city. Homes with real services, public space that stays alive, and connections that don't force everyone into the same choke points. The real moment isn't the first match. It's the first morning when the lights are on in hundreds of apartments, and the place finally feels inhabited. New York's 2026 to 2032 era isn't one mega project finishing. It's 5 systems trying to make the same promise: less friction, more resilience, and a city that stays functional under pressure. So here's the question. What matters more in New York's next decade? New tunnels or the everyday connective tissue that makes the whole system feel smooth? Drop your take in the comments. If you want the follow-up as these deadlines either hold or slide, subscribe. This is Structures Unchained. See you next time.